Deep jungles are some of the most unexplored places on Earth. Dense forests where the sunlight barely reaches the ground, and where strange sounds echo through the trees at night. For centuries, people have reported seeing things moving between the vegetation. Things that don't seem to match any known animal. What you're about to see are some of the strangest jungle videos ever caught on camera. The pale figure inside the tree. Along a quiet lakeside grove near northern wetlands, two visitors noticed something unusual at the base of an old tree. At first, it looked like nothing more than a hollow formed by erosion and age. The lake behind them remained calm, with reeds moving slowly in the afternoon breeze. Then, something inside the hollow moved. From the darkness of the trunk, a small figure began crawling forward. Its body looked thin and fragile, supported by long arms pressing carefully against the soil. The skin appeared pale, almost gray, beneath the daylight filtering through the branches. Its head seemed slightly too large for its frame. Wide eyes reflected the light as it tilted its head toward the camera. It didn't blink. One visitor stepped back, pine needles cracking beneath his feet. The marsh creature carrying a bag. The frogs had gone silent half an hour earlier. A group of birdwatchers had set a motion camera near the dark stream in the Biberza marshes, hoping to capture otters. But what they recorded was no known mammal. From the mud, a slick gray creature slowly emerged, its skin shining, its eyes wide, and fixed like a fish's. Its body was humanoid, yet it lacked any clear neck or separation between head and torso. It dragged itself forward heavily, webbed hands digging into the sludge, as if struggling to leave the water. In its mouth, it carried something, not a fish, but a cloth bag, wet, swollen. When the creature noticed the camera, it didn't flee. It slowly sank back, maintaining eye contact until fully submerged. A week later, another team found a similar bag 8 kilometers downstream. Inside, only an old faded photograph. The humanoid figure by the river fishermen from a nearby village reported that something had crawled out of the river just before dusk. At first, they assumed it was a giant anaconda dragging prey onto the bank. But when they returned the following night, they found deep, stamped tracks carved into the mud, perfectly parallel, too symmetrical to belong to any normal animal. So, they waited, hidden behind tall grass, watching the bend in the river. The sky was overcast. The water moved steadily, brown and swollen from recent rain. No birds crossed above. Even the insects seemed quieter than usual. There, by the bank, someone whispered. It was already there. From the waist up, the figure looked human. Below the hips, a massive scaled tail stretched behind it. The attack at the riverbank. The group of fishermen was about to pack up beside a quiet stretch of riverbank. They had cleaned the day's catch and were resting when heavy splashing echoed from the rocks nearby. At first, they assumed a large catfish had become trapped in the shallow current. One of the men stepped closer to look. That's when it happened. From the water, a pale hunched figure suddenly burst upward. Its skin appeared slick, almost like freshly shed reptile scales, reflecting the dim light above the river. Its eyes looked deeply sunken, its teeth long and jagged. The creature lunged forward, grabbing one of the fishermen's head with both hands before anyone could react. The entire video lasts only 18 seconds. You can hear one of the friends screaming the victim's name. Karst clearing. In a section of jungle in Thailand, two hikers pushed through dense undergrowth and stepped into a misted clearing. At first, the shape ahead looked like a dark limestone outcrop rising between the trees. It stood motionless, broad at the base, narrowing toward the top. Large leaf-like structures hung from either side of its head, heavy and curved. One of them lifted a hand, pointing. As rain began to fall, the upper structures slowly expanded outward, widening like layered petals. Water streamed down their surfaces. The mass beneath shifted slightly, enough to confirm it wasn't stone. The hikers didn't move closer. The air felt thick, humid, still. Local stories speak of mountains that walk when left alone, too long. No one in the clearing tested whether that was only a story. Crocodile-headed bird. Somewhere in the jungle, a motion camera activated during the night beside a shallow feeding tray. The footage begins normally, just leaves shifting and insects crossing the lens. Then, something steps into view. At first, it looks like a large bird, heavy body, dark plumage, rising around the neck like a mane. But the head is wrong, long, thick, more like the snout of a crocodile than any bird people know. It lowers its head toward the food and stays there, strangely calm. The camera records only a few seconds before the clip ends. When the video later appeared online, viewers argued about what it was. A mutation, a trick of angles, maybe an animal distorted by the infrared light. Still, the shape of that head is difficult to ignore. Ancient riverbed. In the Peruvian Amazon, a team working through layers of compact sediment uncovered a skull far larger than expected. At first, only fragments were visible, curved bone emerging slowly from the ground. As more earth was removed, the scale became clear. The fossil measured over 3 meters in total length, belonging to an extinct river dolphin, unlike those found in the region today. Researchers identified it as Pebanista yacuruna, a prehistoric predator that once moved through ancient waterways connected to what is now the Amazon basin. Its size suggests rivers that supported far larger life than modern systems allow. The skull now rests in study collections, but its proportions quietly reshape the history of these waters. Swamp Watcher. Deep in the Louisiana wetlands, a man named Lemoyne guided his small green boat through narrow channels of cypress and stagnant water. The afternoon was unusually quiet. No birds, no wind, only insects humming somewhere in the heat. When he turned into a tighter passage, the engine suddenly stopped responding. Ahead of him, crouched on a thick root, something was already there. Its body looked muscular and wet, skin dark as old mud. Long arms hung toward the water. The creature watched him without fear. Lemoyne raised his phone and began recording. Slowly, the figure lowered one hand into the swamp. The surface didn't ripple, not once. It was as if the water refused to move around it. The boat drifted forward without control. The creature tilted its head slightly, studying him. Then it leaned backward and slipped silently into the water. Upright animal figure. Lost footage shows an animal-like shape moving through an open area before doing something unexpected. It slowly rises onto 2 legs. The posture feels wrong. The balance looks strained, as if the body wasn't built to stand that way. There's no aggression and no sudden movement, only a careful adjustment into an upright stance. For a brief moment, both remain still, facing each other. Then the recording cuts. There is no follow-up footage and no explanation attached to the clip. Just a short segment showing a creature standing in a way it shouldn't be able to, captured briefly before vanishing from view. Night Jungle Duende. During a nighttime expedition, 2 explorers recorded something crossing their path deep in the jungle. At first, it looked like a small shadow cutting between trees. Then it ran. A tiny figure darted through the vegetation with surprising speed, avoiding the light as if it knew where it was being watched from. The camera caught brief details as it fled: gray skin, long ears, and torn clothing clinging to a thin frame. Its movement wasn't animal-like. It ran upright, choosing cover, disappearing and reappearing between trunks. There was no sound beyond hurried footsteps and breath. No attempt to approach, only retreat. The clip lasts seconds before the figure vanishes completely into the foliage. No second angle, no follow-up. Just a short encounter with something small and deliberate, seen only long enough to know it didn't want to be seen at all. Tree Watcher. Deep in a humid forest, a group of explorers had placed motion cameras hoping to track ocelots moving through the area. Late in the afternoon, something unusual echoed between the trees. It sounded like laughter, but uneven, almost tired. Not clearly human, not clearly animal either. One of them, Luis, followed the sound carefully. That was when he saw it, high on a moss-covered trunk, several meters above the ground. Something clung to the bark. Its body was bent and covered in long gray skin or fur. The fingers pressed deep into the wood, but the face looked strangely human, quiet, sad, almost reflective. Luis lifted his phone and recorded without speaking. The creature noticed him and tilted its head slightly. A softer laugh followed. Later that night, reviewing the footage, they realized something unsettling. The laughter never appeared in the recording. The figures above the clouds. A passenger flying above the clouds begins filming through the airplane window after noticing something unusual in the distance. At first, the shapes appear faint against the bright layer of mist below the aircraft. But as the camera steadies, the forms become clearer. 3 human-like silhouettes appear suspended above the clouds. They stand upright, spaced apart, almost as if positioned deliberately in the air. None of them move. None of them shift with the wind or the passing clouds. For several seconds, the figures remain completely still. The shadow beside the wing. During a commercial flight, a passenger notices something unusual moving beside the aircraft wing. At first, it appears as a faint shape drifting across the sky outside the window. But as the plane continues forward, the dark form remains alongside the aircraft. It doesn't look solid. It doesn't show any clear outline of wings or structure. Instead, it appears as an elongated shadow, stretching and compressing against the pale sky, somehow keeping pace with the jet's speed. For several seconds, the shape hovers near the wing, before slowly thinning and fading into the surrounding air. Viewers online later compared the silhouette to a dementor, though the resemblance remains subjective. Experts suggested cloud shadows, atmospheric distortion, or reflections on the window surface. None of those explanations were definitively confirmed. Giant bird approach. In an open meadow near the edge of a forest, a camera captures something moving slowly toward the lens. At first, it looks like a large bird emerging from the tall grass. Then, the scale becomes clear. The creature is enormous, far larger than any known bird in the region. It walks instead of hopping or taking flight. Each step deliberate, controlled. Its posture feels alert, almost aware of the person filming, as if it understands it's being observed. There is no panic in its movement, no hesitation, just a steady advance that feels intentional rather than instinctive. No known species matches its size or behavior. The footage offers no clear details of its wings or markings, only its presence and forward motion. The video ends abruptly before the encounter can continue. No aftermath is shown, only a brief moment where something impossibly large walks out of the forest and straight toward the camera. River Guide and the Catfish Being. The murky water of the stream barely reached the guide's knees as he walked forward in silence, choosing each step carefully. Behind him, a creature followed with difficulty, half human, half riverfish. Its skin was slick, brown-green, reflecting light like wet stone. Its face resembled that of a giant catfish, with long whiskers hanging and swaying with each strained breath. The guide held a white bucket and whispered words in Quechua. They weren't commands. They sounded like pleas. The creature stopped every few meters. Each time, it released a deep, wet sound, more like a lament than a growl. It seemed injured, exhausted, or both. Its torso was strong, but covered in moss, mud, and scars that looked deliberate. The phone camera, resting on a low rock, recorded everything without zoom. Only insects, cracking branches, and water shifting under the creature's weight could be heard. Impossible, flying creature. In 1965, an expedition recorded footage of something airborne that doesn't fit any known category. The film is old and unstable, but the shape is unmistakable. A creature with a long neck and enormous wings moves through the air with visible effort. Its flight is heavy, deliberate, not gliding like a bird, and not erratic like damaged equipment. Each wingbeat looks powerful, controlled, as if the body is built for sustained movement rather than speed. It doesn't resemble a myth brought to life. It behaves like an animal adapted to its environment, aware of airflow, weight, and balance. There is no dramatic dive, no display meant to intimidate. The footage ends without commentary or explanation. No identification was ever attached. No follow-up expedition is mentioned. Only a short segment from decades ago, showing something in the sky that moves with purpose and has never been fully explained. Living Giant Ground Sloth. Explorers filming in an African jungle captured something that shouldn't exist anymore. From near a riverbank, a massive creature emerged slowly from cover. It looked like a giant sloth, enormous, thick, reddish fur, long curved claws, capable of tearing into tree trunks. The animal crossed the shallow edge of the river with heavy, deliberate movements, then disappeared back into the jungle, as if following a familiar route. Its size and proportions closely resemble descriptions of Megatherium, a species believed to have gone extinct thousands of years ago. There was no sign of panic from the animal, no confusion. It moved like something that belonged there. The reaction came from the explorers instead. Once the scale became clear, they stopped filming and ran. The clip ends without explanation. No return to the site, no scientific follow-up. Just a brief recording of something prehistoric walking through a modern jungle. The winged horse in the jungle. Deep in a dense jungle clearing, a camera captures something standing beside a muddy stream. At first, The shape looks like a horse, partially hidden by vegetation. Its body is pale, muscular, and tense, as if it had just landed. Then the wings open. Large dark feathers spread outward from its back, stretching wider than the surrounding bushes. The creature stands still for a moment, head raised, scanning the forest around it. The camera shakes slightly as the person filming moves closer. Suddenly, the animal lets out a loud, sharp neigh, almost identical to that of a horse. Then, it beats its wings, once, twice. The force pushes air through the leaves. In seconds, the creature lifts upward, rising above the trees, before disappearing into the foggy canopy.